All right. Hi, everyone. We are going live with the Inside Track, the editor and assistant editor relationship. Thank you so much for joining us today. Ta-da! Wow. Here we are. You're coming live from Avid Burbank in Burbank, California. This is the Avid office, actually our main theater. Again, I'm Michael Krulik with Avid's product marketing, and we do have an amazing set of panelists here from the upcoming Sympathizer, the HBO show. What they say, espionage thriller that's coming out next year. But I will let the panelists actually introduce themselves. So why don't we go ahead and start with Vix on the end here. Introduce yourself to the attendees here. Tell us about yourself.
Hi, I'm Vikash Patel. I'm an editor from England. Been doing it for a long time, about 23, 24 years. Kind of fell into it at university back in England. Taught myself how to use Avid Express for over about 6 weeks. And I went to do a 2-week internship. And after day one of cutting a music video for the company, the owner of the company came in and offered me a paying job the next day. So that's how my career started. Truly just, he was happy with what I did with the music video and literally came in and said, hey, do you want to come tomorrow and we'll pay you to cut some projects and work on some projects with us. So rest is history.
You said to get paid?
Sure. Yeah, sure. Whatever, I was 21 or whatever. And to get paid a good amount of money, I'm sure I should have got paid a lot more, but hey, take it. I was a second-year student at university, so I'll take it.
Fantastic. Yeah. Victoria Lang.
I'm Victoria Lang, assistant editor, and I've been doing this for quite a while. I started in New York City, East Coast. I actually studied fine art and had no intention of going into film, but fell into it and was on set as assistant director and then really wanted to be in picture editing. And I've just had the luck, privilege, and a great time working with New York editors and Los Angeles editors.
Great. And Julian Doan.
I'm Julian Doan. I went to film school at Cal State Long Beach. I grew up in this sort of Jackass era. So I started off I think my first experience with filmmaking was making skate videos in the early 2000s with my friends, and then went to film school. Once I graduated in 2009, I spent a few years just kind of doing everything, doing some, cinematography. I was directing, making my own sketches and shorts with all my friends. We were kind of inspired by the It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia model, just shoot things with your friends and hopefully, put it on YouTube and make it big. It didn't really happen for us, but I always found I was just doing everything, and I found that editing was the part I enjoyed. I think I enjoyed the most. And I always thought of it as just the same as directing. I didn't really realize it was its own job. And I think after a while, I wanted to find something that was creatively fulfilling in the same way as directing, but with more stability and longevity. And I eventually wanted to go into post proper. And so I've been an assistant editor for about going on 6 years now. So relatively newer compared to these guys, but yeah, it's been good. Still make films on the side sometimes, but the world of post has been really fulfilling.
I think it's amazing that, coming from different backgrounds, whether you're going to film school or starting out as assistant director and moving into this, or even starting out doing skateboard videos and trying to propel your career into doing this. It's always amazing to hear how people venture into this. I know some editors were I never even knew there was a path to editing. I didn't know there was a way to do this.
I wanted to be a professional cricket player. Here I am, and it didn't work out, and I fell into it. I never aspired to be an editor. Never, not once. I truly wanted to be a professional cricket player, and it didn't work out. Around 17, and then I loved the arts, and here I am, made a career out of it, and it can be extremely fulfilling. It's fun and extremely fulfilling, and it's also can be extremely stressful at times too.
Of course,
Yeah.
that's part of the process.
This is what makes it fun.
Now, you've had a working relationship, I believe, with Victoria, and Julian came in later. Just part of the assistant and editor relationship, what do you look for in an assistant?
Somebody first, like, that you are gonna gel with, like, on a personality level. I think that's like key. And I've talked to Victoria about this. Like, I really just times I walk my dog at the end of the day. Victoria knows I'm walking my dog, and we just chat. We, like, we talk about the work, but we also just, I mean, she's got a family. She's got a young son. I've got 2 kids, and we get on that way. And then same with Julian. We talk about our other passions. Whether it's photography, etc. So I think on top of the job, I think you have to enjoy being around and being with your assistants, because you spend anywhere between, when we're physically in a room, or in an office, we're spending between 9 to 10 hours a day with them. So you're spending as much time with them as your partner or your wife, your husband. Well, so I think if you don't get on well with them, and if the personalities don't kind of gel, then it's always going to be not as fun, right? Because you want to make it fun. Like, that's like the job is the job, and it can be extremely challenging and stressful, and you need to be able to laugh, and you need to be, you need to know that the person next to you, your assistant, is gonna support you and elevate you and help, or be a sounding board. And that's when, specifics for me looking for an assistant, somebody who shares the same taste and sensibility as myself. I'm huge into looking at assistants. I like assistants taking pride in the work specifically that I would hand them to them, which is sound work, VFX work. I do a lot of the picture cutting, and I do a lot of the scoring predominantly, but the sound work is their baby in many ways. And I really want them to champion that and take pride in that.
Oh, nice. So, and then Julian came in later, or were you all brought in at the same time?
We were
To this specific project?
For this project?
Yeah, no, we were brought in from the get-go. Like, Victoria and I were brought in as a team. I met with Julian via Jack Schuster at HBO, and Jack introduced me to Julian. He said, meet with Julian, see how you get on with him. And we got on like a house on fire. I think we talked for like 50 minutes, and I was like, it's going to be great. And Julian is not our dedicated assistant. He's the assistant for the entire project. He has his own episode that he's assisting on with an editor named Fernando Stutz. There's another team, Jen Lee and Mike Board. And so he kind of chips in and assists and helps them too. And he's been instrumental helping us as a team. And I just think the 3 of us work really well together.
I think, Julian, you have an interesting story on how you got into editing, or wasn't it Facebook?
Oh, the assistant editing thing.
Yes.
Yeah. So yeah, when I wanted to get into post proper, I'd been cutting shorts, and so I knew like how to. I went to school, so I knew how to like turn things over to color, sound, music, all these things. Like, I knew how to do all that. I was always doing it myself. So I saw a post on a Facebook group, like, I need an assistant editor, one of those many groups. And it was for a documentary feature. And I sent an email, and I was very upfront that I had no documentary experience and no feature experience. But, I'd been working at like a YouTube company on Premiere for like 5 years. I was like, I know Premiere very well. I'm organized. I know how to do turnovers. I like threw that word in there. It's like
buzzword, right?
Yeah, I know how to do this. And I got an email back that said, we're looking for an experienced documentary feature assistant. And I was like, thank you very much. Like, please keep me in mind in the future. And then he emailed me back and said, what I'm asking is, do you want to do it? And then I met with him, and it wasn't even like an interview. He was like, this is where you're going to work. This is the keys to the office. It was very strange. Yeah. And this was Mark Lipson. He was like a producer for Errol Morris's films. And I was like, oh, wow.
That's not bad first gig.
Yeah. So that was kind of it. Like, that, honestly, it was that job. I got some other doc features from there. I went on to a doc show after that for a year. And then my post-producer, Sarah Potts, and that was also post-producing on Ballers on the HBO show. And then, we got along well and she liked my work. And then she brought me on to that. And that was my first like union gig in 2019, where I worked with her husband, Mike.
That's
Yes.
right.
Yeah, which was really, really random.
So sort of a little in, you have like relationships that you build, during the process, but just want to say, don't discount any job if you're trying to get in, to get something off of Facebook. I mean, that sort of
Worked for
your
me.
career.
Worked for me.
And Victoria, how did you get your start?
I worked on set as an assistant director, and once I had kind of gotten my DJ days, I kind of was like, I really wanted to go back to, I loved storytelling, I loved filmmaking, and I loved music and sound. It just kind of seemed like, I think post is where I want to be. So I took a little bit of time off and I went to the Edit Center in New York. Which I found out about from the editor of Todd Salon's film that I had been an AD on, Alan Oxman, who runs that. And I took a course and kind of tried to figure out if it was what I wanted to do. I fell in love with it. And then I hit up all the UPMs I'd worked for to find out if any of the films had a post-PA position. And from there, I fell into just an amazing group in New York. It's very small compared to LA, and I just loved it. I met amazing people and so much camaraderie and so much collaboration, and it's great.
So collaboration is key to doing any sort of show. You're cutting this. I know we're here live, which is great. Wanted a different experience rather than just everyone watching Zoom. So to get you guys here live is great. So how are you cutting now with the Sympathizer? You are remote, each of you?
Yeah, like 95, 98% remote. Yeah, we've had a few like in-person days in the beginning, which I think was helpful for us, like getting some FaceTime with each other, especially, to speak to myself, like not being Vix's like sort of main assistant in the beginning. Like I think you were sick the first week and I had to cover, and
I had COVID.
Yeah, there was like this VFX previs, big VFX previs meeting for like the finale of the first episode, and Vix had to go in and meet with the VFX team, and I just joined, and I got to sit in the room and kind of like watch them all talk. At the end, he was like, "Hey, why don't you just take this sequence and add this, sound design this thing, and then we get to present it to the team," which I think was helpful to like, get in the room and like just meet each other. And he also, they're very gracious and like kind of divvying out some projects, for me, which, it's not my episode, but I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, it's fun. I mean, we're in a bit of we're completely remote now, currently, Michael, on the project. But up until March, we had a hybrid situation because whenever our director would want to come by, because we were shooting at the lot in LA, so whenever he would want to come by or work on, say, the previs or look at something, or when I was working with him doing his director's cut, we would physically go to the office. But they're currently shooting in Thailand right now. So for the last 2 months, everything's been struck. But we are about to start back in the office sometime in May. But we're still also going to continue to have the ability to also work from home in a hybrid situation, which is great because it's like we have families, we have lives. Sometimes we'll get a request later at night, and I think if you're at the office or if you've come home, I think the likelihood of you going back to the office to turn that over late at night is probably slim to none. But at home, you're like, okay, it's going to take me 10 minutes to quickly do that. And I'll just quickly hop on and do it. And we do it. And no harm, no foul kind of thing,
And as far as your setup, how are you working? What tools you're using to collaborate, or how are you remoting in to edit?
We use Jump to basically do our work. And we're about to start using Evercast, which I've used in the past, and I've used there's a few other streaming workflow software. I think it's called Clearview. I think I've used Clearview, and I've used
Packpose.
That's right. I don't think I ever used Packpose.
Right.
But we're using Evercast. And then the entire team uses Slack, which I pay attention to it, but I don't really participate that much because of just the distraction for me whilst I'm working. But mainly the best way for me to communicate with both Victoria and Julian is I pick up the phone and we text and we phone. Like that's
Old school.
Yeah.
But it's like, and I enjoy it. We talk about the work and then we'll have 10, 15 minutes of talking about, hey, my sprinkler broke or my plumbing broke or whatever, right?
Right.
And so I like to be that way. I prefer it that way because, and Victoria knows, like she'll just call. Like if there's something urgent, she'll call me or she'll text me. I don't pay attention to Slack that much. I used to when we first did Ozark. It was new and the remote workflow 3-4 years ago. It was all new and Slack. But you just get constantly everybody like slacking, and I'm like, I'm trying to work. So I would just turn it off, or I put my phone in another room, and I'm like, I just need to focus and concentrate. So old school.
How's the work-life balance? I know there are people who are like, I like hybrid, or I'd rather be in the office. Do you have a preference as to how you like to work? I know you said it's nice because you can be at home and you can like take the 10 minutes.
I'll let everybody else answer quickly though, but I prefer doing the dailies part from home 100%, to be able to kind of map my day out around the family situation with 2 kids. It's kind of wonderful. They go to school early in the morning, I'm working, they come home, I'm around to help, but around 4:30, 5 o'clock, I'm relatively done with my day. I sit down, have dinner with them, et cetera, et cetera. So I love it for the dailies portion, or for the time when I'm working by myself. Obviously,
hey, Michael.
Yes.
Just a question right around that same
Perfect.
that same thread. It just came in actually. We've got a number of questions that came in, but this one's on point. How do you mentor assistants while working remotely? How does remote mentorship differ from in person?
That's the whole reason why Michael and I talked about this almost a year, about 8-9 months
ago. Yeah.
The catalyst of this whole event here right now is, I feel like the remote workflow is detrimental, I feel, or it can be detrimental to the mentoring aspect of what we do. And that's why I think, personally, for me, that's why I think maybe I don't really gravitate towards the Slack, etc. That's why I like picking up the phone, because talk about it, discuss it, how I would do that in a physical space. Like typically when I'm in the office, I'm always asking my assistants to come in, into my room, watch scenes with me, get some constructive feedback. I also love sharing my dailies and have them cutting scenes, and then going into their room, looking at scenes, watching dailies with them, talking about stuff like that. To me is how you learn, and it's also really important for the assistants to come into a room when possible. Not all directors love this, not all producers love this, but to come and sit and just be a fly on the wall and understand how to be a diplomat and how to navigate the room with several producers in the room. You have to, as an editor, I think it's like, physically, sure, cutting, etc. That's one skill, but also being a diplomat is really, really important, and understanding, okay, when to plant a seed to do something, and when to shut up and when to listen. It's extremely important, and I think that's really tricky in the remote workflow. I don't know how I've not really navigated that well yet. But I just constantly try to engage and have Victoria and Julian engage as filmmakers, because I know they are stellar at their assistant work. I know they can do that. That's like muscle memory for both of them. It's, hey, we just watched the pilot episode yesterday, and we spoke and we did a FaceTime session for an hour, and we talked about, their thoughts and creatively, what can we do to make this better? Clarity, I call them individually after, and we've, and I think that's engaging that way is one aspect of helping with the remote workflow.
Do you find the challenge is because being remote and not having that personal tie-in, is that where more of the challenge is?
Yeah, I do. I truly do. And I think it's the additional steps of, hey, log on to Evercast, let me show you something. It's like, okay, I'm just going to do it. Like, it's just the clock's always ticking. There's so much work to always be done, and the additional steps, they're a time suck. Whereas when we're in the office, knock on the door, come on in, can we just sit on the couch, go get your cup of coffee, go get your cup of tea, and just sit. And I've got several questions I need to ask you. Or we're ready to do a screening. Come on, let's go get a glass of scotch at the end of the day, and we'll sit and watch. I mean, like that's my process.
Yeah.
It always has been, and I value everybody's input, but specifically, my assistants, because they know what's been shot also because they've prepped the dailies. So they, and they'll, like sometimes Victoria, like, oh, I loved how you used that shot. Or, what about this thing? Do you remember that? I'm like, yeah, but then I articulate it. It forces me to articulate my decisions. I guess that's what I love about it. Because when they ask questions, I'm like, oh, I did this because of this, because I'm doing it because I want to engage with this person's point of view, et cetera, et cetera. Or sometimes I'll be like, good point, this is because of this. So it's the conversation.
You have to like defend your own. Everyone has to start defending.
Articulate my decision. Sometimes there are. Sometimes there's no right or wrong answer. Sometimes it's just I like to cut from a place of like feeling. Like for me, it's like I don't intellectualize stuff. I just I felt that. I feel like this is what is the right thing to do, and it feels right, and I'm going to run with it. And it's that simple.
So you see, so go ahead.
I was going to say with remoting, when we first all had to work from home, I would say what I really appreciate is us being able to be on Avid. There's less hardware. I mean, things kind of came together. It took a little bit of time being able to jump in, connecting to the Nexus, all that stuff. Because the first job I did, we panicked and we all put everything on drives, and it was horrible. It was so much work. And so now with remoting in, we have our, Avid Nexus mirrored, all at our facility. And it really, for me, having a family, it allows me to do dailies at 5 a.m. And then I know I can take my kid to school. I know my editor has everything. And with VIX, what really was helpful with remoting, because I do miss being in the room, watching cuts, is we have like a for VIX, for Victoria, for Julian bin. And VIX will do things and say, take a look at this. And it's so fun. Like it makes it, I've done the dailies, I've done the sound, or I've pulled in the music, and then he tries things and is constantly like, check this out. And what I really appreciate is at first when he asked, check this out, I kind of, was, tempered with what I would say, but then I started to be like, no, I don't like that, or no, that's not working, or why didn't you use this? And you were very responsive. And I feel like that is really, because you're like that with your directors. You don't just say no.
Yeah.
And it was really, I was like, this is so fun for me.
And our relationship started on a recut that we did last year, and that's how it all started. I constantly on that. Like I would ask you so many, like multiple times in a day, like, Victoria, check it out. What do you think? And she'd quickly run and check it out. And she'd be like, love it. No, I don't like this because of this. And I'm like, great. So much trust has been built.
Yeah.
And I don't need somebody to sugarcoat it. I don't take anything personally. I'm just like, I just want it to work. I want it to be the best it can be. And with both of them, like we watched yesterday, as I said, and I don't take all of their thoughts. It's not because I don't value their thoughts. Sure. It's just like what works best currently for what I'm trying to get to, and it's breadcrumbs that will be planted later potentially with the director, or maybe they won't, but it's like, it's like everybody's thoughts valid, but then it's also my decision ultimately to either run with it or not, and that's the way I've kind of operated.
But you and I didn't have a relationship before the show. But I think what helped was that you set that groundwork really early, is that whenever we would talk, you would say that it's like, when you watch something, you feel free to tell me whatever you feel, like no notes or bad notes, like I don't take it personally. Like, so he set all that up. So I felt very quickly, very free to, there is often that stage in the beginning where you're trying to feel someone out. You're trying to feel out like, how do I give my notes? I gotta, maybe not sugarcoat, but you have to be a little bit political. But I felt very quickly that we were able to it's not, I don't like shit on his work or anything, but it's like we do.
We're trying to make it better. We're trying to
Yeah, just try to be like, what's not working?
That's right.
What's not working about the scene or whatever. So I appreciate that. And I think, yeah, again, it makes it way more fun for us, way more creatively involving.
Gets your brain thinking about editing.
Yeah, we're not thinking about
Cool.
just the.
There's studs out, the assistant stuff. Like that's like, I can't have a conversation about the technical stuff with them because I'm technically incompetent, as you know. Right? I've explained that.
I don't believe it.
But this is the stuff that I love. Like we talk about this all the time.
Yeah.
And I truly like value their opinion. I think
Which is
it's
huge. I mean,
I think so.
you want fresh eyes on something. You want to not be afraid to voice your opinion. So to be open to something like that is great.
Mhm.
No, of course, sorry, go ahead.
No, it's, I just want to say to add to my perspective on it is I feel like, I've assisted now and probably like the past 4 editors I've assisted have all not been in LA. Like they've been like Atlanta, Scotland, Sao Paulo in Brazil right now, the other editor that's not Vix. But I think like the tough thing about remote has been for me is that if you're only going to go through, say, something like Slack or written communication, is like you censor your own bad ideas because you have to kind of, you know what I mean? So what I like about getting on the phone is like you kind of shoot the shit about a scene and you, excuse my language, but
It's okay. We can edit it.
Yeah. But yeah, you get to like go through the process of like spouting out the maybe not the best ideas thing. And then you start to like arrive at the good stuff, So I feel like we need to have conversations about, well, what is this? You need to like vocalize those first. No, that doesn't work, and then, yeah.
And a good example actually with Julian, which was on the second episode of Sympathizer, was this scene at the end where I done this like a little bit of an intercut, and then Julian was like, "Oh, what about this?" Or like he thought about this other thing. I'm like, "Why don't you just do it? Like, just take it. Go run with it. I'll work on something else. Why don't you show me?" And he did it, and then we came up with a hybrid version, and we presented that. Like because we ran with it, and it was a point of view, and I felt confident that hey, let's do it. So it's the pictorial cut scenes. They may change, they may not change, but it's like it's. I just feel like from a creative standpoint, that's the way I hope I can at least try to help mentor. Because once we're in the room, I know I can do that. Like I've mentored all my assistants, and it's like I love that. I love having my assistants in the bay with me, or going into their room after giving them a scene to cut and then reworking it with them, or kind of making them feel they've not experienced it yet, but almost like putting pressure on them as if I'm the director and sitting in the room, right? Because that's the reality of it. That's what's going to happen, right? Like trying to make it all feel like that, prepping them, getting them ready, articulating point of view, articulating story, hearing their ideas, why they did this, helping them understand to defend their cut if they need to, but without being abrasive, all of those things. There's a billion things that we have to learn, and it all just comes from experience of physically being in a room with several producers or director or et cetera, et cetera. Because you have to learn to pivot. You have to learn to know when to shut up.
And then technology allows you to quickly go in. I mean, you're not like grabbing film and doing stuff. You're actually on the digital system. You're all accessing Nexus. You can actually go in and cut something relatively easy without taking away from your daily assistant duties as well. But nurturing to be able to let them cut a scene, get that, experience, and offer creative freedom to something.
Hey, Michael, several questions around the types of experience and skills that people are looking for in an AE.
Right.
Wait, what is?
So the type of experience that people or editors are looking for in an AE, what skills do you bring as assistants?
And then I can try. Let's go for it.
What skills do we bring?
What skills do you like? Yeah.
What are the requirements as an assistant? What are your duties that are required to help in the collaborative process?
Well, I was just going to say,
I think that's what the question.
it's kind of different if you're working on a feature, if you're first or second, and then if you're an episodic. So it depends. But you do need to really understand the equipment, Avid, or whatever you're working on, and understand the process, workflow. That's kind of the assistant stuff for you. You do work with sound and the online, and you have to engage with production. But then for the editor, it depends on their needs, whether they need to prep dailies. Script sync. Some people need script sync.
Not me. Don't look at me. I don't use it. So.
And then, sound work, music work, maybe some temp VFX. But I was going to say, we didn't even mention that Julian speaks Vietnamese, and the Sympathizer is Vietnamese and English. And it's for me, as being Vic's assistant, and we had the luck of having Julian. He speaks Vietnamese, and then my husband had also worked with him on Ballers. I was just so relieved to have that support, because it was really reading the scripts and all the Vietnamese. I was like, what am I, bringing that level of understanding and sensitivity, because it is a really special project. And it's even even more special probably to you.
Yeah.
So that I think is huge.
Mhm.
You brought that. It's a huge thing to bring, depending on what the
It's a
project
huge
is.
asset to have,
Huge.
Julian. But
Not just that, but it's
yeah,
Yeah.
because we've got the scripts, we've got the English and the Vietnamese, translation. So for example, I could have seen and I'll populate it with subtitles just from what I'm understanding. And then it's great to just hand that over to Julian. Just say, Julian, will you just look at this? And he'll look at it for me, and he will tweak subtitles, or he'll leave a locator for me. He goes, I think this is the wrong, he's saying this word, or they're saying this word incorrectly, etc. So I look at the takes, So it really is a team effort. It would not work. It would fail without Julian and Jenny on set too, who's our Vietnamese consultant on set, and then also our director. We have a Korean-speaking director, where we have a translator working with. So it's just, it's a global project with multiple bilingual show, and it's so far I feel like we're doing pretty good.
Yeah.
I would have been totally overwhelmed. Because
You'd have to learn Vietnamese.
Well, but to do Vietnamese script sync, it's just, we do have tools that help us, and I find that very helpful, but it's great.
Yeah.
Do you have any, as far as your duties now? I think that the great thing here is, adding, you may not know that the skill that you have may benefit being an assistant. Since Vietnamese, that has helped put you into this position.
Yeah, it is. That, and I think the good thing, especially for me, is when I talked to Jack Schuster, and even when I met with Vix initially, I was pretty clear up front. I think that I was not interested in joining this show only to be, the Vietnamese. Obviously, that's very important to me. That's why I want to be part of the project. But it's like, I wanted to be able to be involved in the show beyond the limits of just the Vietnamese and cultural aspect. And, to that, I think within this team, I've been allowed to be like a bigger part of it. So yeah, I think script sync obviously is like a huge skill set. That's, I think when you're getting interviews on, it's like sometimes people ask that like out the gate, they're like, do you script sync? And it's like, well, if I'm not good at that, like, am I not getting this job? But yeah, so it's good to be good at that. And, but honestly, I think beyond all the technical things, which, people have talked about probably everywhere in many interviews, but I feel like my experience, editors really appreciate the sounding board thing. I feel like I'm, that's just being someone that they can like talk to about like if they've got story issues or even like life issues. I feel like it's a little bit of like a therapy thing sometimes. And I feel like editors are like that with directors and producers a little bit.
It's such an intimate space.
Yeah. It's like,
when I work with Jason, like you sit in the room and it's like on Ozark, and Jason, I think it was season 1 of Ozark, and one of the actors asked if he could come into the editorial, and Jason, I'm not sure. And he came into my room, he goes, I don't ever want, the person's come in. I just want it just to be like, it's so intimate, right. We close the door, we work for 9 hours, and it's just like, we talk about personal stuff, and it really is an intimate affair, and you're also just working, and you're razor focused. And I think, You know, so he's never done that. He's like, no, I love it. I just want to keep it just us, you know. And from my point of view, that's when I have to read the room. I have to read the room because I would love to bring my assistants in and sit in the room, you know, but it doesn't really happen that much when I'm working with a director, truthfully. It just doesn't. Most directors don't want that. It can happen more when we stagger into the producers phase, but in the directing phase, really, and the director cut phase, it doesn't work because, again, it's very intimate and it's, you know, it's, but I have to read the room. Some directors are like, oh yeah, cool, you know, or like they're just a little bit more free with that. That's when I'll be like, hey, do you want to come in and sit in the room? Why don't you sit? You know, and if they compliment a scene that one of the assistants has cut, I'd be like, oh yeah, you know, my assistant cut that scene, et cetera, you know. So it's like it's a good way to kind of tie everybody together and bring everybody into the mix.
I mean, you know, just to finish off this thing, like to that point, like I feel like if I were to tell anyone the thing I feel gets me, you know, continually like pulled onto projects or whatever that I take pride in is, and that you guys have, you know, are really skilled in this as well, as like temperament. I don't think I'm honestly like, I have no aspirations of being the best assistant editor out there. Like, I don't think from a technical perspective, I'm very like somewhere in the middle, a median skill level, but I feel like temperament and sort of like personality is like a big reason why people want to work with you again, or want to work with you in the first place.
That has a lot to do with it as well. I hear, you know, to be an assistant or an editor, it's, you know, have a good attitude.
Yeah.
Be a sponge,
Huge.
you know, be able to absorb the information, learn, offer advice, know when to and when not to, you know, offer opinion, or like you said, you know, being able to know when to speak.
Just listen. You just want to listen mainly. You really just listen, you know, and don't be defensive over your work. You can't be. We're editors. We change stuff all the time. I change my work 50 billion times. I really do, you know, because there's several ways to put a scene together, you know, but long as the story's been told. And again, I feel like don't intellectualize why you cut a scene. Just cut it because it feels like, if you cut it from a place where it feels right, the rest will go away. Like if it feels right and you're making it feel emotional or dramatic, do that. Don't be trying to be, oh, I think the audience is going to do this, this, and this. Like, you've lost me there immediately, you know. So, but yes, no, I think as you said, attitude is key.
Because if you have a good attitude, when the next job comes up, you're going to go, hey, I enjoyed working with the team I had before. You know, let's move that forward. So you definitely want to have a good attitude. And things like attention to detail. I mean, when you're organizing media and folders, how important is that in the process?
The most amazing, meticulous organizer in the planet. Here she is. Let's tee up Victoria Lang. Here we go.
I love organization.
She's
I love it.
Amazing.
I love it. Julian's very good too. He is good. It's very important, especially I love the Avid for media management. It never it's really lovely and usually never fails me. But you have to be very organized and you can always know where stuff is. And I also, you know, as a good assistant will create a project that you could like walk away from it and another assistant editor would come in and find everything. Like it really should be organized like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And we're able to do that.
But I also feel like there's no, the tough thing is like, there's no like magic bullet, like guide on how to organize every project. It's always going to be different. So you just have to like know, I feel like the most important things are like know the needs, and then you can always kind of like reverse engineer from there.
Know what your editor wants.
Exactly.
And then, you know, the rest of it, you know.
Yeah.
The communication. And I think you said you really are using markers as a way to communicate with each other.
We use markers a lot.
Yes,
Yeah.
all the time.
You even leave like full paragraphs.
Quickly type. I'm sure they're all incorrect. I just type. I put a marker, type, and then move on. I don't look at it, but I roughly. Hopefully, they get it. You know.
Yeah. Sometimes they'll be like, "What?"
Yeah, we have a color system. You know, so they leave markers for me, and vice versa. I leave markers for both of them. So
we don't leave enough markers for each other.
But it's an easier because it's specific, right? It's like that scene or this take or this thing that's bumping me, this audio thing. I'm looking for something here specifically. So it's a great way to quickly communicate without me picking up the phone. And then eventually we'll obviously talk. And, you know, I was complimenting Victoria yesterday to Julian, like I left a marker for her to do this animat thing on our project. And I watched, I'm like, how in the world did she do that? Like it's amazing. Like I said that to Julian. I'm like, like it truly was amazing. She got rid of them. Like,
Yeah.
and then today I looked at it this morning and I think Victoria's left herself a note like she wants to make it even better. I'm like, it's fine. Something about the flag. Yeah, I didn't even notice that.
Yeah.
I truly didn't notice.
Good.
So
I actually do appreciate those. You left a couple of those like, oh, good job here.
Yeah,
It's
that's
nice.
yeah.
That's nice. You know.
It's those little things where you could spend, you know, hours just tweaking one little thing as the end perfect, and how good you feel when
When
it
you
works.
do it well, I mean, it's
Yeah.
like when it's
Yeah.
part of that helps the storytelling, it makes you feel.
When it serves a story, yeah, for sure.
Definitely.
Now, how much VFX work do you do? Like just temp stuff, like animat and sound design? I mean,
Oh, we do a lot of
sound design. Yeah, I do a lot of sound design.
I feel like this show, we do have a lot of kind of temp VFX comps, but we will have a VFX editor to do the really massive sequences. We've had to do here and there.
Nothing crazy,
Yeah.
I wouldn't say.
Yeah.
A lot of
It's just like
But
whatever's
more
telling the
sound
story,
work,
really.
yeah.
I love
Yeah.
a lot of sound work. Like that's just my thing. It always has been. That you know the episode play with a lot of sound work put in because it helps. That's just how I've always presented my work. So they do a lot of sound work, and you know they take pride in doing that. And it shows because we watched the episode yesterday. It feels really great.
that's a look.
Yeah, it looks great, feels great. You know, it's all shot in Asia, like the Vietnam, like the moped sounds kept coming through. I love like all of it, you know, and it feels authentic. Feels really good.
So I guess with COVID and everything, you weren't on set doing anything. You were just seeing dailies come in.
Yeah, we went to set.
They go to set.
Yeah.
Oh, you're here on the lot.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
shot 5 episodes here in the US on the lot. So we would go. It was
Yeah.
fun.
How was that?
It's actually really good. It was kind of fun, you know. I mean, you know, we were beta testing a system as well, which wasn't working.
Dailies cloud system.
Yeah, it wasn't working that great, but which then prompted us to go to set anyway. And then, as I said, we were working with the director from the lot. So it was great to go over. It just feels like you're part of a team making it. Like that's why we work on movies and TV shows, because like it's you can't live on your own island. You're doing it with 200-300 people. Like everybody contributes to a project, you know, and it's great to meet like the scripty or go talk to Jenny or even see the actors, you know, and chat with them, you know, and it's like.
It is good to get FaceTime with the people that we're like emailing on a pretty regular basis, like supervisors and you know, the consultants and stuff. Because I think behind that wall of emails, sometimes things can feel a little passive aggressive, and then you meet them in real life and you're like, oh,
Yeah.
so this is not, this is all great.
Like you said, when you see somebody outside of Zoom, you're like, oh, you're taller than I expected.
Yeah.
And I think that's why I think I don't gravitate towards the Slack element of it, because it's just a task. It's just like there's nothing human in it. It just feels like, you know, it's just like, okay, do this or do that. Whereas when you go to set or you communicate with me, you get to ask them about their family or, you know, comment on, well, like just chat for 5 seconds or whatever about something just random, but it feels honest and it feels human and it feels like, you know, I don't know. I just kind of love it. You know, like I worked on a couple of projects last year where I was essentially, if I didn't have Victoria and another assistant, I would have been on my own island. And I crave the teamwork, I crave the collaboration. And that's why I love, like we're back again doing it. And I love that, you know, because you can't make it by yourself.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And as far as your team beyond the three of you, who else do you deal with on a regular basis besides directors?
Yeah, directors, and I communicate with our post producer, you know, a couple of times a week, mainly about soccer. Actually, we talk about we're both big football fans, soccer fans, so we talk about work a little bit, but mainly about football. His team's not doing very well, but yeah, mainly Victoria and Julian on a day-to-day basis, multiple times a day. Yeah.
I think Julie and I talk all the time, and even we'll FaceTime and just kind of hang out and do stuff. And what I really like with Julian is that we have had some kind of harder VFX stuff trying to figure out, well, we'll see. Like, it's nice to be like, how did you do it? Or did you figure it out? Or, you know,
I think that's like, yeah, and that's the hard thing about remote too, with like mentorship or with, you know, because when I was on Ballers, like when I took my first union job, I hadn't worked an Avid job. I did not say this, but I said it later.
Now we know.
Yeah. You know, she was like, my posters were like, it was like, I knew you would learn. And actually, like, you know, when I took that job, there was like shots with there was a shot with like 5 monitors in the shot, and it's like handheld and moving, and they wanted comps. I had no idea how to do it. I asked Mike and the other assistant, Nick, I was like, guys, I actually don't know how to do this. And they came in and they were like, they walked me through it. So, you know, I was like nervous to ask, but you know, when you're in the room, they can then come, you know, it's a little like, but I felt when it's remote, I feel a little more nervous actually in certain teams if I don't know how to do something, be like, hey guys, like, you know,
how are you doing it?
Yeah, it's like a little like, I don't know, in my living room, I feel more subconscious about it. But you can like feel people out. And, so I'm glad we've been able to build that vulnerability.
And it's all a learning process too.
Yeah.
Constantly. I mean, I'm learning from people like you. I mean, the editors on doing things, and you learn from each other. I mean, it has to be that open mentorship to be able to learn and nurture.
And I think, I don't know, I could be wrong, but I feel like we're moving towards I think the remote workflow or hybrid workflow is going to it's truly cementing itself. Like the thing that I discussed, which is I would love just to continue on whatever projects I work on in the future, to do this portion of it from home, because there's zero reason for me to go to the office, to spend, 45 minutes driving to an office, et cetera, when that time goes to work. So there's always going to be a remote hybrid workflow moving forward. I feel in the industry, the technology's there. I think I would imagine most studios and networks will be comfortable with that, and especially some of the kind of projects I kind of gravitate towards. I could definitely ask that question. Because I think for you and I, 100%, it's so useful. Like Victoria, as she said, she'll prep dailies 5:30 in the morning. Sometimes I'm sat at my desk working at 7 a.m. because they're done. My wife's taking care of the kids. I'm done. And I'm done by 4. And I get to spend time with the family too. So the work-life balance is kind of amazing to have that.
It probably is helping you mentally, where you're not so stressed with driving. Oh, wait, I have to drive. I have an hour drive, it's at that downtime when you could be working, and getting that time and being able to spend with family.
Yeah, I do a lot of my work in the morning. Most of my editing work is done by lunchtime. I just jam through it really quickly and I get it done. And to have the luxury of working from home and the comfort of knowing I'm going to be done by 1 o'clock or whatever with cutting my dailies is great. And then I get to talk a little bit more and chit chat with these guys a little bit more. But that's always been my thing. Whereas when you're in the office, you leave the house at 7:30, you get to the office 9:30, you make yourself a cup of tea or coffee. You're not really cutting till 10. And I'm like, and then you don't get home till 7:30. Kids are ready to go to bed. Right. So it's the perfect balance for the work.
Oh, good.
So the remote work.
And remote working. And you're not having to pass drives. I think when COVID first started, you were like, panicked, how do we do this? Just take the drives, just work.
I know.
Total nightmare.
Yeah, it's.
So just out of curiosity, coming from, I know there are a lot of people who are online who might be wanting to become assistants. What advice would you both give somebody who's like, hey, I'd like a career in editing, I want to be an assistant? What words of wisdom or what things should they
Yeah, I don't know. There's a lot. I do feel like this sort of quote unquote soft skills thing is much more, I feel strongly that it's much more valuable. I don't know what advice I'd give to teach them other than to just kind of be attuned to, picking up on how editors or how other people are kind of like dealing with folks or how they speak and how they I don't know, maybe come back to that. I don't know. They have.
Yeah, I mean, just think about it.
Yeah.
I think if you want to work on union shows, there's definitely more of a path. I highly suggest if you are able to get a post PA position, please learn Avid or ask the assistants or sit with them or I've definitely, if you can get kind of the entry level position, I am always happy to have someone sit with me and just ask questions and try things. And in New York, I usually had an apprentice. It's been kind of more difficult in the last couple of years and in Los Angeles, but you have to learn within, because it's definitely a system. And like, I definitely got jobs by meeting and knowing all these people and going to ACE things and going to the union things and going to editorial meetups. And then if you want to edit, just a lot of people told me when I was first starting out, if you want to edit, just cut. And yeah, I think if you want to edit, yes, do that. But it is good to also get in and assist, because at some point you may need to know all that stuff to kind of assist yourself if you're editing something super low budget. Or I don't know if you never really did that.
But you get to work with like different editors and you get to absorb different styles. So then you actually get to also figure out a bit like what your own style is, what you gravitate towards. I like the way that editor works. Maybe the way that editor works is not quite to my liking or to my style. I think it helps focus that.
I was going to say too, you have to really be open to adapting, because when I started out as an assistant, I just missed being on a film bench, and I got to do a little bit of that stuff as a intern PA apprentice. And then, we used to have digitized tapes and sit and watch dailies. My editors would take notes, and now it's so different, and it's just going to keep changing. You kind of need to keep working with that and updating yourself and going with it. It's constantly changing.
I was going to speak to your point, actually. I was going to say, if people happen to get post-PA jobs, especially now, I would highly suggest that they don't be shy about asking the assistant editors or whoever they have access to, like, that they want to somehow find a way to sit in. Like, I worked on a show where like I would Google Meet with the PA and like screen share my thing, doing just not boring, but like whatever my sort of everyday tasks were. Because like those are the things that are hard to find, like videos online and learn from, and it's like, dude, do you want to just watch me go through my day of dailies, or watch me like try to figure out how to like sound design the scene or whatever, like, and they can just watch, and then we can chat and have a convo. That's hard too for them, if we're not in office.
Yeah, I will say remotely, it's probably hard. It's harder.
Yeah.
I've had on the last.
You might have to have an AE who's like maybe going to offer that.
Yeah.
But I think assistant editors can also offer that. Be like, hey, do you want to like watch my screen or call me or something like that?
On the last show that we did, I did have our post PA come sit with me a couple of days. It is a little harder with promoting, but
yeah. And I think if you're gonna go to these networking events too, like I definitely think people should approach with the intention of friendships and relationships first, because I feel when those people talk to you and they only want like a job, and it's very off-putting.
It's really
super
extremely
off-putting.
off-putting. So it's kind of rude in many ways,
It
where
is.
you're just, the agenda is immediately there. And then, no. How about you rub my shoulders a little bit and hey, let's go out for a cup of coffee. Let's get to know each other or whatever, and let's see if our personalities gel first. Because we've discussed that a little bit, because I just don't think you won't just go meet somebody on the street and ask them for a job. Like that's just not the right way to do it, There's got to be, there's
You gotta get a feel.
you can't, of course, it's relationships. Truly relationships.
Relationships, absolutely.
Yeah.
So just on that as well, from an editor standpoint,
Yeah.
what advice would you give to somebody besides relationships with?
Well, I'm
company?
going to give a little bit of my secrets away here of like, what I look for in many ways. But I don't, whenever I've interviewed assistants, not once have I asked them, are they technically capable of doing, the job from a technical aspect? Not once. Like, I assume that you know how to use the Avid. I assume that you know how to use the Nexus, because I that's not something I know, or respectfully, it's not something that I gravitate towards. I'm not an overly technical person that way. But I do, when I meet with them, I'm very much looking at some of the stuff that we've talked about. Attitude. Am I going to get on with this person, sit in the room? Am I going to be able to have a beer with this person outside of work? Like those are the things that I value. I really do. Because, truthfully, if I wanted to, I can do a lot of the work myself. As long as my dailies are prepped, I can cut it. I can also do some sound work. Not the best at VFX work, but that's not really overly important to me. Sound work and picture and music, I could technically probably do a lot of that myself. But I want a companion. I want to be doing it with somebody else. I want to be able to get on with them. And a really simple but a really great example of what I'm looking for in an assistant is I'll tell you a story which was many years ago. I was working on Smallville, and I was in England, and my current assistant at that time, she was offered to go work on another project. So she left, and I was in England, so we couldn't speak on the phone. So she emailed me, and I said, no problem, that's what you want to do, that's fine. I had 2 months to find another assistant. And the post producer and the other editor on the show, they gave me a laundry list of some assistants, and we whittled it down to a couple. And one of them was an editor now, Cedric Naren Smith. So we spoke on the phone, and I called him from England, and he goes, first he picked up the phone, he goes, hey Vix, how's it going, blah, blah, blah. And I introduced myself. He goes, hey, I'm just going to go, I'm about to walk into a movie. And he goes, oh, forget it. Hey, let's talk. And I said, no, Cedric, please go watch a movie. And from that moment, for him just to almost to say, hey, I've lost jobs because this was an opportunity for him to change course, I was like, immediately, I'm like, he's got the job. Just straight away. I saw his resume, he'd worked on big movies, but he wanted to become an editor, etc. So I said, call me once you've come out of the movie, let's talk. And we talked. And Cedric and I probably speak to Cedric 2 to 3 times a week.
Oh, wow.
And he was my assistant for 7 years. Amazing. And as you've probably met him, and he's doing, amazing stuff in the Marvel world, and wonderful human being. But I just, that little thing went such a long way for me. Just the attitude of hey, you know what? I've lost jobs, so I'm not going to go to the movie, and I'll talk to you. But I said, no, go do it. And immediately I knew straight from that moment, I'm like, he's going to be my assistant. And he was great.
That's awesome. Well, we are getting at the top of the hour now. This has been really great. I'm sorry. I know there probably were lots of other questions. Maybe we could get those answered online. But I think the big thing here is, have a great attitude, learn, listen. The editor-assistant relationship is huge. I mean, it is part of the collaborative process and really important in post-production, whether you're remote or not. But definitely thank you so much to all of you for joining us.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you for all of you for attending. Just so you know, you can download a free version of Media Composer, 30-day free trial. And also, if you're a student, we just released a Media Composer for students where if you're college or university level, you can talk to your schools and get Media Composer for free. And also, even when you graduate at a discount, so you'll be able to learn to use the tools that you can edit some amazing television shows and films. So I had to put a plug in there.
Thank you. It's great.
But anyway, again, thank you so much. Thank you all, and have a great rest of your day. Thank you for your time.
Thanks.